So hey guys, and welcome to the Random Watch Dude channel. Thanks for joining me for another video. It's a lovely day here in Auckland in New Zealand. So hey, I thought I'd record a video for you today talking generally about the watch hobby. And what I want to talk about today is the 10 reasons why watch collecting is just such a great hobby. Okay guys, yes, so why is watch collecting such a great hobby? Why is it such a great hobby to have, you know, when you think of all the other things that you could obsess over in your spare time and your not spare time? When you think of all the things that you could obsess over, why do you obsess over watches and what's the point of it all? So I've come up with 10 reasons, guys, 10 reasons why watch collecting or the watch hobby generally is just an awesome hobby to be in. And I'll start with reason number one, guys. Reason number one, quite simply, is the cost of entry. The cost of entry. Getting into this hobby, getting into the watch hobby, irrespective of how far you can go in terms of how much money you could spend on the watch hobby, honestly, 50 bucks and you're in. 50 bucks and you've got yourself a watch and you are officially into watches. That's reason number one, guys, is the cost of entry is so low. We tend to get a little bit, to a degree, I think maybe we get a little bit desensitized in the watch hobby. When you've been in it for a long time, you get a bit desensitized to the cost of things, to prices. For example, this bad boy that I've got on today, this is the Rolex GMT Master 2, the Riddler, the VTNR. This is not a cheap watch, guys, and it's not an easy watch to get hold of either. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not an amazing watch. It is, but sometimes you become a bit desensitized to the process of getting watches and the price of watches, and certainly when you're buying a watch like this, you do become a little bit desensitized. You can suddenly find yourself justifying spending 15, 20 grand. I'll just be interrupted by the TUI up here. Goodbye. But you can find yourself getting a little bit desensitized. But honestly, guys, 50 bucks and you're in. So reason number two, guys, reason number two is there is a budget for everyone. So following on from reason number one, which is the cost of entry is very low, there is also a budget for everybody. So you can spend as much or as little as you like. It's not one of those hobbies where you have to spend 5 grand just to get in, and there's kind of a cap, you know, that it's ridiculous to spend any more than about 10. No, with watches, there is a budget for everybody. You can spend 50 bucks, you can spend $5,000, you can spend $50,000, you can spend $500,000, and in some cases you can spend $5 million. Reason number three, guys, reason number three for why the watch hobby is such a great hobby is you get to wear your hobby. You get to wear your hobby. How often do you get to wear your hobby? You can wear it 24/7. How many hobbies are out there, guys, where you can just wear it all the time? You can enjoy it 24/7, 365. If you're into fishing, for example, you can only enjoy that hobby when you're fishing. You know, if you're into diving, if you're into driving, because I know some of you guys are probably obsessed about cars, you can only really enjoy being in the car for a certain period during the day. You can't be in the car 24/7 unless you buy a Volkswagen camper, and then potentially you could. I used to have a Volkswagen camper when I was in my early 20s. Absolutely fantastic hobby that was. Really enjoyed it. But yeah, guys, number three, you get to wear your hobby 24/7, 365. Fantastic. So reason number four, on a slightly more serious note, reason number four is nobody gets hurt. Nobody gets hurt in the watch hobby, do they? Apart from the guys that get their Rolex, like Sir Ben Ainsley gets his Rolex stolen off of his wrist at knife point. Nobody really gets hurt in this hobby. Fish don't get killed. If you're into fishing, fish don't get killed. I know that's a terrible analogy, but there are so many hobbies in the world where things get hurt or people get hurt, aren't there? And the other side of that is also the manufacturing of watches. Modern slavery is a really big issue these days in manufacturing. And think of all the clothes companies and all the clothing that you buy. Think of all the crap that you buy in the $2 shop. As an example, think of all the crap that's available in the cheap, you know, $2 shops around the world. A lot of those products are manufactured in less than respectable environments. And modern slavery, guys, is a really big problem in the world. And I think it's fair to say that the watch hobby is one of those hobbies where you don't have to worry about modern slavery, because we know that these watches are made in countries like Japan and India. India's a really bad example, actually. We know that, I don't know where I got that from, I think I was thinking of India for modern slavery, but watches get made in Switzerland, they get made in Germany, they get made in the States, they get made in Japan. Some watches do get made in China, and that would be a little bit iffy for me in terms of modern slavery. However, on the whole, guys, people don't get hurt. And reason number five is because the hobby can be as simple or as complicated as you want it to be. You can really geek out on technical specs in this hobby, or you can just put on a G-Shock, and you will, I have to say, I warn you, if you haven't bought a G-Shock already, you will still have to study the instruction booklet very carefully to figure out how to change the time on these. They're not easy, but they're a very simple watch once you once you've set it up, and off you go. So you can be as simple in this hobby, or you can be as technically complicated as you want it to be. You can really geek out on movements, you can geek out on ceramic bezels and power reserves and silicon hairsprings and parachrome this and glide lock that, and you can get all techie. You can really get into your chronographs and your day dates, and how those movements work. That's the real technical side of it. You can get into the grades of materials that are used to make the watches, for example, the grades of steel, the titanium grades, and whatever. Or you can just go for a nice cheap and cheerful plastic and rubber G-Shock, and just keep it really simple and enjoy it just as much, to be quite frank. Enjoy it just as much. Okay, so reason number 6, guys. Reason number 6 is it's a hobby with history. Some of the brands, some of the watch manufacturers in this hobby, date back 150 plus years. And I'm not just talking about the commonly known brands that we know, like Rolex and Omega, for example. I'm also talking about some of the lesser known brands. So there are some really brands out there that are steeped in history, and that's something that you can really geek out at times, to be honest with you. The brand's history, and even the history of movements, the history of the coaxial escapement, for example, with Omega. The history of the Oyster Perpetual case with Rolex, but you can also geek out on brands like Seiko and Citizen, who have made some amazing quartz watches, for example, and I'm talking high precision, high accuracy, high torque quartz watches. There's a great deal of history steeped in some of these brands and in some of these products that they've produced over the years that you can really enjoy geeking out on. So reason number 7, guys, is you can enjoy this hobby on your own. You can enjoy it completely on your own, on your little Todd there, just sat in the corner in the dark, just admiring your watch like Gollum in his cave. You can do that if you like, but you can also enjoy this hobby with friends. You can make a lot of friends in this hobby, and you can spend time with them, not just maybe face to face, but you can also spend a lot of time with people on social media, more time than you might like to accept at sometimes. But yeah, it's one of those hobbies that you can enjoy on your own, which again is kind of a rare trait with some hobbies. Some hobbies, you kind of don't quite get the amount of enjoyment out of them when you're on your own as you might like to, but with the watch hobby I genuinely think you can pretty much enjoy it just as much on your own as you can as if you were with other people. Okay, so number 8, guys, number 8, slightly contentiously as well. Number 8 is you can get out of the hobby, you can get out of a watch without completely losing your shirt. Now I know, of course, there are caveats to this, especially if you bought a watch on the secondary market at a very high price. But generally speaking, with the watch hobby, when you buy a watch, yes, you're going to lose money, like everything else in this world. You will lose money once it becomes a second-hand object, but you don't lose it to the point where you just basically might as well throw it in the bin. If you buy a watch, any watch, whether it's a G-Shock or something far more expensive, you will, if you want to get out of it, you will be able to liquidate it, you will be able to sell it and get some money back. You may not get everything back that you paid for it, the chances are you won't, but you will get something for it. It's not completely worthless once you decide to sell it. So number nine's a fun one, guys. Number nine's a fun one. And number nine is that there are different genres and styles of watch. You can absolutely get completely and utterly lost in different styles of watches and different genres. And what I mean by that is you've got vintage, you've got neo-vintage, you've got modern, you've got some really weird, wacky designs of watches, you've got some very, very conservative designs of watches, you've got dress watches, you've got tall watches, you've got divers watches, you've got big watches, you've got large watches, you've got watches that date back to World War II and before. You can absolutely go for your life and build a collection, guys, of completely different genres from different epochs in the world of watches, and that's a really, really enjoyable aspect of this hobby, I think, is that you can really get immersed and get interested in different styles. You can focus on one or two styles if you like and just stick with those. Like I tend to focus mainly on divers watches and vintage watches, and I don't have many dress watches in my collection, but I have had dress watches and I enjoy them. So you can just filter through all these different brands, these different styles, these different genres, and that's a really, really enjoyable part of the watch collecting process, I think. And just finally, guys, number 10. Number 10, I actually think that watches make really good heirlooms. They make really good items that you can enjoy for your entire life, but you can just as easily pass them on to future generations, to your children, to your parents, to your auntie, your uncle, your brother, your sister, your best friend, whatever. You can actually pass watches on. They are an heirloom type of item, aren't they? So, and that's not necessarily to say that you want to pass, your watches on to your children because you want them to hang on to that watch for the next 50, 60 years of their life, because the chances are that most of the watches that you pass on as an heirloom will probably end up getting sold, because you shouldn't expect, and this is one of the key things that I have to keep reminding myself of, is you shouldn't expect, just because you're fascinated by watches, you shouldn't expect the future generations to, or people around you, to be fascinated by watches too. And if you do pass watches on to people as an heirloom, then don't necessarily expect them to keep it, but if that watch has some sentimental value, the chances are they will, but also if it does have financial value, then it's a good opportunity for them to liquidate it and do something with it, do something useful with that money that you've passed on to them as inheritance. So that's reason number 10, guys, why I think the watch hobby is really cool, and that is that watches make really, really good heirlooms.